Okay, hello Michael. This is a response to your challenge for an atheist to give an argument for the non-existence of God that does not rely on arguments against Scripture, and that is also an argument against the general conception of a God, not limited to a God with particular ethical properties or necessarily in the Christian tradition. Uh, First of all, if you're not Michael, then hello. You're welcome to listen in on the conversation and comment if you like. However, before you do so, you might want to go to the link that I'll put down below to the video this is a response to. And while you're there, you might want to listen to Michael's other videos on the Rational Roundtable. Uh, Michael is a very interesting person. He's a rationalist and a Christian and an unusually independent thinker. And I just discovered his channel a couple weeks ago, and I've been catching up on his older videos, and I find him very thought-provoking and interesting. And it's really only because I found him so interesting that I've been moved to actually make a YouTube video, something I never imagined myself ever doing. You're also welcome to subscribe to my channel if you want to, although I don't know if you'll find anything particularly interesting here. I don't expect to use it for anything except to respond to Michael's videos. Okay, so hello again, Michael. Uh, I'm going to get the arguments for and against the existence of God in a video after this one, but before I do this, I wanted to make some preliminary remarks. To begin with, I'm interested in discussion more than debate. I really have no interest in convincing you of anything. My motives are to be able to test and hone my own arguments and to investigate what I believe. And the best way I've found to do that is through discussion with an intelligent, open-minded person with a different perspective. So that's where I'm coming from in all of this. Second, I would classify myself as an atheist, although perhaps by some definitions, people would classify me as an agnostic. If someone wants to call me an agnostic, I really don't care. We human beings, tend to be fascinated with classifying and categorizing our own points of view and other points of view. We gain a sense of security in identifying ourselves with a particular ism, and a further sense of security in ridiculing other contrary isms. So, with that in mind, my task is not to defend some particular well-defined ism of atheism. Rather, I want to talk about and investigate some important basic issues of what I believe and why I believe it. And since I do have an atheistic perspective, that will be expressed in what I say, but arguing for a particular atheistic position is not a goal for me in and of itself. And also, with that in mind, I'm not going to limit myself to some particular atheistic philosophy that may have been published, just as Michael does not limit himself to any particular expression of Christian doctrine, but attempts to be an independent thinker. I have the same attitude. As an example of that, most or many of the more outspoken atheists I see arguing an atheistic position are very disparaging of the idea of faith. They tend to ridicule it. And for myself, I have no problem with the idea of faith, although I don't know if I actually define faith the way a Christian does. But regardless, I think of faith as something that human beings can't live without, actually. The way I think about it is this would appear to be a cup of coffee. Uh, But how do I know this cup of coffee actually exists? And ever since Descartes opened up the point of view of skepticism in philosophy, this has been a big question. You know, maybe there is no cup of coffee. Maybe I'm actually wired into the matrix, and this whole room, all of YouTube, all of you, are just an illusion. Or maybe it's even goes further than that. Maybe only this moment is real, and the future and the past are just illusionary things inside my head, or something put there by the devil. Maybe this is all completely an illusion. Okay, but the thing is that assuming the universe is real, then we have to act, and we have to act. The clock is always ticking, time is always moving, and the universe is not going to wait for us to resolve all of the great philosophical questions. We need to engage, or even choose not to engage, which itself is a decision. And so even if I can't prove this cup of coffee exists, even if I can't prove that my moral intuitions are nothing more than kind of blind mechanical uh, instincts put into me by evolution, even if I can't prove that free choice is anything real, you know, regardless of all those issues, I'm a human being. The universe isn't waiting for me. It's going to go on with or without me, and I have to act. And that is how I view and define faith, as the decision to take a leap, so to speak, and to engage with life, even though we can't prove everything philosophically. Okay, so with that in mind, I find it very funny that a number of usually more fundamentalist Christian apologists have followed a line of argument that disparages or actually disparages faith. There's a book I've seen, I haven't read it myself, but the title is I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And I've heard Christians arguing that it takes more faith to be an atheist than it takes to be a Christian. And it's almost as though they're arguing that faith is a necessary evil, and that we should be Christians because Christianity requires the least faith possible. And that seems to me like a very funny argument for a Christian to make. In some ways, I think that more fundamentalist Christians are actually as materialistic as the atheists they tend to argue with. So that's just something kind of funny. Okay, so moving along. Michael, you suggested that in discussion between an atheist and a Christian that we shouldn't refer to Scripture because we have more fundamental issues to argue with. And I agree with you for the most part. To be honest, I would find arguments over the validity of Scripture in the Old Testament to be boring and uninteresting. As I said, I have no interest in convincing you of anything, and since Scripture is not an authority for me, it doesn't mean much to me, I don't really see the point. It doesn't interest me to argue the fine points of it or to convince you of what a rotten guy God is in the Old Testament. That seems to me completely pointless. On the other hand, I would not want to restrict the use of Scripture entirely or anything else. There are passages of Scripture that I've found meaningful and moving, particularly in the Gospels. There was an occasion where I was on a long flight and I was all alone, and there happened to be a Bible I could read, and I spent a lot of the trip reading from the Gospels. And I found some of those passages so moving. I spent maybe half that trip actually crying because these passages moved me so deeply. I later talked about them over with some Christian friends of mine, and I don't know if the things that moved me about those passages were the same things that moved them. It's something I don't know. But the point of all this is that if there is a passage of Scripture that you would want to use, not because you want to use it as an authority, because of course I don't accept Scripture as authority, but if you want to use it because you feel it expresses something from your heart better than you could express yourself, then you shouldn't feel limited. You should feel free to use it. And I promise I will not take that opportunity to try to prove that God is a jerk to you. The worst thing that I will do is tell you that I don't actually understand, or it doesn't move me the way it moves you. But that's the worst thing that I would do. Okay, so I'm out of time. I've got to go to part 2 here.